Hey dudes and dudettes, it's me, E.H. Ivins, and this is another edition of The Radical Reset. And today we're going to talk about President Harris, which is what I think we're going to end up with. But we'll get to that in just 1 minute, or what we could end up with, I should say. Who the fuck knows? It's 3 months to the election. You might as well say 300 years. But anyway, so, okay, Joe Biden picks Kamala Harris to be his running mate, and already the shit is hitting the fan. You know, whether you're on Facebook or you're on Instagram or you're on Twitter or all three or none of the above or whatever the fuck, or TikTok. I've never been on TikTok, but I guess it's some kind of a sharing site, and Gab and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, you know, the internet's blowing up with bullshit, and it's just all over the place. And on one hand, we have the policy attacks on Kamala Harris, and on the other hand, we have, well, I'll get to that in just 1 second. Okay, let me preface on the policy stuff. Look, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are Democrats. They're going to run on the Democrat platform. It is a strongly leftist, heavily socialistic, no eye on controlling spending giveaway platform. Now, that's as much as I'm going to say about policy really today. I'm going to leave that to, you know, Rush Limbaugh on one side and Rachel Maddow on the other. I'll let them slug it out on policy and all that other bullshit, because really, we as anti-politists know we're for whatever works, and neither side talks about anything that could ever work, and all they're doing is digging us deeper and deeper into a pit that we can no longer avoid. So I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to talk about what I think, what is, okay? One day we would like to be anti-political. One day we are going to be anti-political because the economy and the country is going to collapse, and everyone's going to be looking for a third way. And this is the only third way, unless you think socialism is it, and that's never worked. So for those of us who have a brain in our heads, and, you know, I realize right now we're an extremely small group. I'm not delusional. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering what's going on with my head, gray hair somehow doesn't want to listen. And when I was brushing my hair, my choice was glue it down or cover it up, because it was just wild this morning. When your hair goes gray one day, even if you dye over it, guys, male or female, gray hair has no pigment, and so it gets really brittle and weird, and so it just kind of does what the fuck it wants to. So I'm just covering it up today, and I realize as I look into the monitor, it looks like I've become an imam. So I'm going to turn my head now sideways so that, you know, this is a baseball cap on backwards. Okay, we're all clear on that. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, no, I am not bald. I simply have wild gray hair that would make me look like Albert Einstein this morning, so I chose to cover it up. Okay, back to Kamala Harris. So, again, I'm not going to talk about the issues, and, you know, I'm sure in some future podcasts soon we'll talk about this or that or the other thing when they really get into slugging it out. But let me talk about Kamala Harris, the person. What I'd like to do is give you a balanced, I think, and measured view of Kamala Harris, the person, because she could easily end up being very, very soon the President of the United States under the 25th Amendment, which is, by the way, the 25th Amendment, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, is that amendment of the Constitution that allows the president to be removed if, in other words, instead of impeached, simply removed if he loses his or her ability to function in some way. You know, whether it could be anything, a stroke or dementia. And look, you want to comment below? Comment below. Joe Biden has dementia. I'm not saying this as a Republican because I'm not a Republican. I'm not saying this as a libertarian because I'm not a libertarian. I'm an anti-politist. I'm for whatever works. If Joe Biden had all of his marbles, I'd be the first one to say it. I'm going to be kind to Kamala Harris in today's commentary. I'm also going to be a little brutal too. Don't think it's going to be a softball, but I'm going to be balanced anyway. And so, as a balanced human being, you have to look at Joe Biden, and it's obvious. Pardon me, I'm going to cough. Okay. So, Biden picks Harris, he slides into dementia, she becomes the president under the 25th Amendment. And in fact, I think that their presidency, if Joe Biden wins, his presidency is going to look kind of French, or Israeli for that matter. You know, what the Israelis do is they have a president and they have a prime minister. Benjamin Netanyahu, who you all know, or if we're talking about the French, I don't know the name of the French prime minister. Drawing a blank. The president is Emmanuel Macron, but the prime minister is someone else altogether. But anyway, okay. Or maybe Macron serves as his own prime minister. I'm not sure. Those of you who are French, clue me in, although I'll look it up as soon as I get off recording this. Where was I? Okay, so anyway, let's go to the Israeli model, because we all know that. Most Americans are at least passingly aware of what goes on in Israel because of the amount of news coverage that it gets this week, including the agreement Israel made with the United Arab Emirates, which, by the way, digressing, was phenomenal. Kudos to Trump on that one, big time. However, back to the subject of this. Okay, so the prime minister of Israel is Benjamin Netanyahu. The president is someone else altogether. And by the way, I don't know who that person's name is either. I should have done that before I started recording the show, but it is immaterial. And the president's job is to kind of do the official shit. Show up, shake the hands of visiting dignitaries, hold meetings, yada yada yada. Kind of operating like the Queen of England. Going to events and being essentially an elected king for a short period of time. Well, I think that's what Biden's going to be, because his brains are slipping. And they're holding him. The reason you're not seeing a lot of Joe Biden, the reason he's not making a lot of public appearances, the reason they're going to drag out and try to lower expectations for the debate is because his staff knows he has dementia. And that stuff only accelerates, and there is nothing to be done about it. Trust me, I'm 63 years old, and I do things like not looking up the name of the president of Israel before I record podcasts. So clearly, I am slipping too. So he is who is without sin among us, let him cast the first stone, or her, whatever. Anyway, have you noticed you always got to throw him, or everything we say you got to moderate these days. You always got to throw in, not that there's anything wrong with it. Today I was out at the park with my dog Pepper, and there were one male dog, Brady's a Labrador Retriever, and another male dog. I forget the name of the other male dog off the top of my head. That's, by the way, I know the names of dogs better than the people there. Go figure that one out. Anyway, they were humping, so I turned to the guy who owned the other dog and said, look at him go. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Anyway, back on subject. I'll be honest with you. I'm doing this podcast also. Not only am I wearing my hat on backwards, I'm just a little bit high. I smoked a little legal medical marijuana. That's why I coughed actually a little bit earlier. I confess this to you. I think it makes me more lucid, but you could probably say it makes me more silly, but believe what you want. If you see a little dilation in my blue eyes, it is because I'm a little bit, not a lot, I just took one hit, a little bit high. Okay, where was I? Fully legally, by the way, BT dubs, as my daughter says. Okay, back on Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. So anyway, I think from the beginning she's going to act as a prime minister. She's going to run the country day to day. Biden will be in the limelight. He'll be playing president/king/queen of England, but in fact it'll be Kamala Harris running the country day to day if they win. And then when Biden slips out, she'll step seamlessly into the role and become president, the first female president and the first black female president in the history of the United States. Certainly a memorable event. And I would like to start my analysis of Kamala in detail by saying she comes to the office far more qualified than the first black president, Barack Obama. When Obama ran for president, he had been in the Senate a very short time, less than 2 years. He had never held a real job in his life. That bullshit that he was a law professor, he was a law instructor. There's a big difference between being an instructor and a professor. Those of you who don't know that difference, look it up. But it is like calling an instructor a professor to the ears of a real professor is an absolute insult, okay? And anyone who wants to debate that, go ahead. Obama was never a law professor, and his career consisted of being a community organizer, which is English for he didn't do a fucking thing to make money. He didn't practice law. He wasn't a law school professor. He instead chose a political career from the very beginning and appeared in political events called community organizing to get his name out there and become the darling of the Chicago political machine. And that is it. And now, that's where I'm going to stop on Barack Obama. This is not an analysis of Barack Obama. But let's go back to Kamala. She comes to office. Prior to being a senator, she's been a senator longer than Obama was when he came to office. She was the Attorney General of the state of California. And as the Attorney General of the state of California, and I would have disagreed strongly with her, she was tough as shit on drug crime. She's already made it clear she's opposed to national marijuana legalization, which would saddens me as I do this podcast a little bit high. Those of you who have never been a little bit high have really missed a lot of fun. I'm not, by the way, if you're over 21 and have a medical marijuana card or live in a state that has, what's the word I'm looking, look at this. This is dementia right here. That has fun, like Colorado. What's the word I'm looking for? Fun marijuana? I can't remember. Not medicinal. You can use it for whatever you want. Party on. Okay, back to the subject matter at hand. See, that was a brain fart right there. This is why I'm not running for president. Not to mention the fact if I did this broadcast a little bit high running for president, they would eat me alive. Whereas on a podcast, it's just nothing at all. Okay, at least I don't think it, I hope it's not nothing at all. Where was I? See, I digress a lot when I'm on pod. That rhymed. Okay, so anyway, back to Kamala. So she comes to office. She was the Attorney General of California. She was very tough. She prosecuted very hard, which is going to present some problems to her. And I think that's where a lot of this she's not really black bullshit comes from. Okay, so let's discuss her background. Her father is Jamaican. The Jamaicans, now for those of you who need a little history of slavery in the New World, there were about 11 million slaves imported from Africa until the importation, by the way, the importation of slaves ended in the about 20 years before the Civil War. By that point, all the slaves in America were the descendants of those that had already come earlier, but the importation had stopped one of the 7 years ago before. So anyway, there were about 11 million. Of those 11 million that came in from roughly the 1600s until the 1800s, less than 400,000 came into the main body of the United States. So the 40 million black people that live here now are either the descendants of slaves by generations and generations and generations exponentially, or they are immigrants from African countries or other places, like Hirsi Ali, who has come to live in the United States and call it her own, but not a descendant of a slave. Now, having said that, and most of those slaves went to two different islands, Jamaica and Haiti. So I'm telling you right now that Donald Harris, Kamala's, and it's Kamala, like comma in a sentence, la. She's named after the Indian goddess of wealth and prosperity, also called Lakshmi. So Kamala Devi, which is her name, means the goddess Kamala. Okay, so I believe so. If those of you who are Indian, if I'm incorrect about that, my Hindi is non-existent. I am here to be corrected. Okay, so I read it. It doesn't mean I actually know it. I read it on the internet, no less, which makes it less than reliable. So her father was black. Her mother was Indian, and had come over to and was in Jamaica visiting, and then fell in love with Donald. Now, at that time, she was supposed to go back to India into an arranged marriage, and she comes from the highest caste of Indian society, caste being caste. For those of you who don't understand the Indian caste system, please just go watch another YouTube video about it. But anyway, having said that, her mother was highly educated. The point I'm making is she came from the very highest part of Indian society. I mean, the very, very top. They are called Brahmins, and she was educated in the best schools, was a very progressive woman in a time when progressivism was not the dirty word it's become today to those on the right, and fell in love and married Donald Harris. They divorced, by the way, 2 years later after having Kamala, and they were never again since. And since that time, Kamala's mother has deceased. Pardon me, I'm going to cough again. This is what happens when I smoke marijuana before a broadcast. Okay, I'm back. So anyway, that's her background. Her parents were both highly educated, both of the academic class. And since the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, we can be assured that Kamala Harris is no fool. So not only was she the Attorney General of California and had worked hard in the legal profession before she ever became a senator, unlike Barack Obama, who did absolutely nothing, but she was also very political from the very beginning, and she's always had an eye, and she's a very ambitious woman. And a lot of the criticism that comes against her, I believe, comes from men who can't stand women like that, to be honest, and women who can't stand women like that. But if she were a man, her ambition would be, well, like I said, she did a lot more than Barack Obama, and no one knocked him for being ambitious. Come on. So let's not even get into that discussion. I hate it when I hear that about women in general. You know, when Amy Klobuchar was running in the primaries, I wanted to gag when they started printing stories that she's mean to her staff. Fuck her staff. If they don't like it, it's a voluntary position. Just step the fuck down. You know, if she wants to be tough, she can be tough. Plenty of men are plenty fucking tough. Only women get tagged for it, but I digress. Okay, so Kamala's a tough woman. Kamala was an ambitious woman. Kamala knew she wanted to be in politics. So she climbed the ladder, but she served real jobs, is the point that I make. So she comes into the presidency fairly well qualified. Her foreign policy credentials are non-existent, but that's not rocket science. God knows if Donald Trump can make the deal between the UAE and Israel, Kamala could certainly make other deals as well. the question really is what foreign policy are we going to have? So, for example, in the Middle East, you have Joe Biden, who basically was a suck up to Iran and China both, who now is going to have to flip-flop. Or is he going to go back to that let's make friends with Iran bullshit, who's never going to make friends with us, and throw the Israelis under the bus like Obama did? Obama was the worst president ever for the state of Israel, and Trump is the best president ever for the state of Israel, interestingly enough. But the question, and he's been much more successful, where Obama made that absolutely vile deal with Iran, where we shipped them a plane load of money, the fucking corrupt fucks, and got 10 years bullshit of nuclear containment bullshit, because they're doing it behind our back anyway, because they don't allow complete inspection of all their facilities, and we got nothing for it. We got butt fucked. So Trump comes to office, he throws out that deal because it was a stupid fucking deal to begin with, and he embarks on a course that everyone said was stupid, and the Trump peace plan, yada yada yada. Here we are, Israel and the UAE. Now it means that Egypt, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, soon Oman, where they have full relations anyway. That's full relations in everything but name only. And Tunisia, Morocco. Israel has excellent relationships, more and more throughout the Muslim world. And the question is, will Joe Biden go to that axis of power, the Sunni Arabs against the Shiites, and be on the side of the Sunnis, which Trump has clearly decided is the path for the United States, or is he going to suck the penis of the Shiites? Those of you who are Shiite Muslim in the United States, you know that they're just crazy in Iran, and I know you're not that kind of crazy. So, please, I'm targeting my comments solely at the fanatical imams of Iran and their followers. Okay, so, and the people around the Middle East who fall for that shit. So Kamala will learn all that stuff. The point is that if Donald Trump can do it, she can do it. Domestically, she's not as far left as, for example, Elizabeth Warren would have been a fucking disaster. But she also would have been an easy target, which is why she didn't get picked. Kamala Harris she flip-flops, but all politicians flip-flop. So I'm not going to go through the list of flip-flops. I mean, I know she's done. During her very short presidential campaign, that's what sunk her. She was pro-Green New Deal. Then the next day she walked that one back. She wasn't pro-Green New Deal. Then she was against Medicare for all. Then she was for Medicare for all. Then she went back against Medicare for all. But other people will pick that apart. But the point is, all politicians do that. Unfortunately, she was in the limelight because she looked like a favorite at the time. The camera does love her. You'll refer to an earlier video where I said the most telegenic candidate wins. The camera loves her. She's great on camera. She's very, very tough. She's very well spoken. She's very attractive. I'll just come out and say it. She's hot. And believe me when I tell you that attractive people win more often than unattractive people. Ask Jack Kennedy. So she's an attractive person. I'm not making any lewd comments. It is what it is. And of course, now the birther, Trump himself has a news conference. This is how Trump is going to snatch defeat from what would have been the jaws of victory. He gets involved in stupid shit like this, where he starts endorsing nutty birther theories. Was she really born in Jamaica or somewhere else and really not let me just cover this really briefly. The law against foreign birth is ridiculous. It should be amended out of the Constitution right now, because it was meant, the idea, at the time of the American Revolution, a lot of Americans were not patriots. A lot of them were British Tories, and a lot of them had been born in Britain and emigrated to the United States and remained loyal to the king. So in order to avoid them sneaking into office, since in those days everybody was English by descent, white, and looked about the same, they made this law that you had to be a native-born American to prevent Tories from sneaking into office in the United States. Remember that after the Revolution, a short time later in 1812, we fought another war with England. So we were not in the best of terms. We were trying to keep the British out of office. Well, okay, so Britain is our cousin country today. We couldn't have a closer ally than Great Britain and all of its holdings: Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Singapore, yada yada yada. We have great India. We have great relationship with the rest of the British Empire. So this is kind of stupid. I mean, when you really think about it, even if she's foreign-born, let's just put this one to rest. Even if she's foreign-born, who gives a shit? I mean, would anyone object to President Malcolm Gladwell? I mean, in Antipolitism, because we're going to use selection like jury duty, Malcolm Gladwell, as a citizen of the United States today, I believe he's a citizen today, could easily be selected to serve in office and could be selected to be president of the United States. Do we reject that because the Constitution says we can't have a guy that was born in Canada? I mean, this is literally probably the smartest man in the world right now. Malcolm Gladwell, I don't know what his IQ is, but I think that he's to my way of looking at it, the single smartest, intellectually smartest human being alive today, maybe Thomas Sowell, but it would be a close race. It's either Malcolm Gladwell, Thomas Sowell, Malcolm Gladwell. Anyway, Malcolm Gladwell was born in Canada, so we couldn't have a President Gladwell. What are we giving up for that? I mean, who else was I made a couple Elon Musk. Elon Musk has put people into the space station, is going to have... SpaceX has done what NASA has done in 10 years what it took NASA 50 years to do. I mean, the guy's amazing. The Tesla automobile, PayPal is Elon Musk. So if Elon Musk, who is now a citizen of the United States, was selected to become a representative or senator and later became president under an anti-political system, do we throw him out because he was born in South Africa? I mean, he's South African. So if he gets selected, we throw him out. Do you think he'd be disloyal to the United States? You think that let's look at his, Trump gets knocked because people think he acts in his self-interest. We all act in our self-interest. So, Elon Musk, as President Elon Musk, his company is headquartered in the United States, all of his companies. Although his businesses are global, the vast majority of his business is done in the United States. Do you think he's going to be disloyal and fuck up the United States? Or do you think we would get a brilliant, innovative, fantastic president, regardless of where he's born? Hirsi Ali. Any of you who know anything about her, okay, she's phenomenal. All I'm going to say is, Mr. Producer, make a link to Hirsi Ali's book, Infidel, for all the people that are watching now. A phenomenal human being. I'm not going to go into her biography, but she'd be a great president. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, come on. No matter what your politics are, this is ridiculous. So I don't give a rat fuck whether Kamala Harris was born in the United States any more than I gave a rat fuck whether Barack Obama was. The question was, would they be disloyal? And the answer is no. To disagree is not to be disloyal. It is not treason to disagree with somebody. She and I might debate, for example, on marijuana legalization, and it could be a very spirited argument, but at the very same time, I don't think she's a traitor for disagreeing with me. I mean, have we gotten that far off the path that we can't have a discussion about anything rational because, God forbid, if we said anything, offensive or what if someone... Anyway, that bullshit. Okay, what else do I want to talk about? That's about it. I think I've covered about all that I want to. So let me just recap, because I know I went all over the place. I know that being a little bit high, and probably my brain is being constricted by this baseball cap, I went all over the place in this, and so let me just try to, condense it down. Biden could have made a far worse choice. The best choice, let's be honest. Let's be honest. If you had to pick a woman to be a running mate, the obvious best choice was Amy Klobuchar. The reason Amy Klobuchar is not going to be the running mate is because Kamala Harris is a far more attractive candidate and comes from California, a major Democratic base. But that made me wonder, the last comment, by the way, I want to make about the race is, okay, you have Harris on the left coast and Biden from the right coast. The election's going to be in flyover country, guys. It's going to be who woos the Midwest, who woos the Kansas and Nebraska and, the places out here where we get forgotten by the elites of California and the Northeast where Biden comes from, and Washington, D.C. itself, where they're all political animals. So anyway, but he picked her. And really, she's an attractive candidate. She's going to be a positive, not a negative. She's going to do very well against Mike Pence in debates. Those of you who have watched her do cross-examination, for example, of Brett Kavanaugh, knows even though she was, in my opinion, unfairly hard, she was hard. I mean, she was obviously a prosecutor, and she was doing her job as a Democrat. Now, I don't agree with anything that she asked or said. I completely oppose her on positions, but it's kind of like, the greatest public speaker I ever saw in my lifetime was Billy Graham. Billy Graham, to me, was the greatest natural public speaker I've ever seen in any sphere, whether it's political or religious or anything else. And I'm an atheist, but I can acknowledge that the guy was mesmerizing, okay? That's how I acknowledge Kamala Harris's talents. I don't agree with her on almost anything, okay? I am a total free market guy, but... okay, I'm analyzing this strictly based on electability. That's why they picked her. She's very, very electable. She knows how to talk the talk. She knows how to close to the center. She knows how to woo a big state like California, which would be the 7th largest economy in the world by itself if it were its own country, which a lot of us would like it to become, quite frankly, but that's a digression. So I don't want to offend you Californians, but really, you're the most beautiful, wonderful state run by fucking idiots. Okay, so the bottom line is this. She's a good candidate. And she's going to end up, if Biden wins and Trump is doing everything he possibly can to lose, and even though I think he should win, okay, based on he's the incumbent, he's very, very telegenic, and Biden's going to make a fucking idiot out of himself in the debates, Trump keeps digging, like with his birther bullshit when they announced Harris, he just keeps digging it deeper and deeper and deeper. And he's uncontrollable, and he's incurious, and he's non-intellectual, and I almost think he's trying to throw it. I did an earlier podcast that said who would want to be president right now. Maybe Trump's done the calculation and decided he doesn't want to be. He'll just go down in a ball of flames, become a leader of a political cult because his followers are fanatical, be just as influential out of office as he was in, and go back to making tons and tons of money and, hand it all down to the kids. I don't know. That could be his plan for all I know. Because right now today, if the election was held, it wouldn't even be a horse race, and Biden-Harris would win, which means you would have, I believe, this is in recap. I'm repeating myself, I know. It's not because I'm advancing in dementia is right before your eyes, but because I'm trying to make a point. He'll be the president to Harris's prime minister. She'll be the strongest vice president ever. And I think, logically, because he does have dementia, guys, don't get into an argument with me. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And the bottom line is, it could have been worse. I guess that's what I'm really saying. It could have been worse. Could have been better. It could have been vice. Okay, I'm not going to go into a Yiddish accent. That's it. I'm wrapping it up. Here's what I want you guys to do. Number one, I want you to go get a copy of A Radical Reset, my book. Wait a minute. I have my copy right here. Let me just hold it up. This is A Radical Reset. It is the manifesto of antipolitism. It explains the system under which I make all these proposals and ideas and under which I evaluate people. It's a system that's extremely free market, but is really based on what works and takes the politics out of politics. No money, no political parties, no corrupt elections, just people representing the interest of us, real, regular Americans, of every race, every creed, every culture. So, pick up your copy of A Radical Reset. It is free to those of you who are Amazon Prime members as a Kindle download or for a small charge if you would prefer the paperback version, which I held up just a moment ago. Also, please click on the subscription button if you haven't already. Click on the notification button so you know when I come out with another one of these highly entertaining, when occasionally a little bit high videos. And join us. Go to antipolitism.org. Join the movement. There's just a tiny handful of us today. But every great movement, for good or for bad, starts with a tiny handful of people who see the truth. And then the shit hits the fan. And then everyone goes looking, and here's this group of people, fanatics, if you will, the early joiners, the ones who get on early and understand what's going on, who step in and say, we have the answer, and save our country, and save our culture, and everything that was ever good about it. And that's where I leave it today. Thank you for joining me, and this is E.H. Ivins saying sayonara and signing off.